Talking with Beecher. Let's go.
All right. Tom Vaughan.
How are you?
How you doing? Okay, so what exactly is a screenplay? You write screenplays?
I write screenplays. It's basically writing a movie. It's just what it sounds like. You're just writing a movie, and there's different kinds. You're writing on spec, which is speculative, and you're writing in the hope that at one point someone will buy it and make a movie out of it. And then there are ones where you're hired to write. So someone's got an idea, they got a book, or someone had written a screenplay for them before and they need it rewritten and they hire you.
So you've been doing that professionally?
I've been doing it professionally since about 1995.
So how do you make money on a screenplay? So you sell it to someone who produces movies?
Yeah, you sell it to the studios, mini studios. Sometimes you option it to a producer and networks. I've worked for Sony, worked for Warner Brothers, Disney, CBS, TBS, Miramax.
Really? So you've had things on TV too?
Yes, I've had, I think, 4 TV movies made.
TV movies?
Yeah.
So they only came out on TV?
Yes, those films only came out on TV. And then my first nationally or really internationally distributed film was in 2017.
And what was it?
It was a film called Winchester with Helen Mirren.
Winchester. Was that a horror movie?
It was.
Okay.
It was a bit of a ghost story about the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose.
The person who put it out Winchester guns?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So is the house supposed to be really haunted?
It's supposed to be the most haunted place in America.
Really?
Yes.
No way. Really? Why?
Well, the legend is that the Winchester house is the Winchester fortune from the Winchester rifles.
Right.
And Sarah Winchester, her daughter died, her husband died, and she was convinced that she was cursed.
They died how?
Just natural death.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They weren't murdered or anything.
Okay. Yeah, that would make more sense if it was haunted.
And
right?
so basically the legend is that Sarah thought that she was cursed because she had made so many millions from the Winchester rifle. And the ghosts were attracted to the house, and they just kept building. I mean, one of the most interesting things about Winchester, Sarah Winchester, was that she just kept building this house. It was just constant building. And so
so the house just kept getting bigger and bigger?
Just kept getting bigger.
Is it a big house in the first place?
It was, she purchased it. It was a 5-bedroom farm. And by the time she was done at the maximum, it had over 200 rooms.
Wait, what?
Yeah, she just kept building and building. Well, there's the legend, and then there's the
reality.
The reality.
Okay.
And it looks like the reality is she just kept building, and she didn't like what she had. She would, design plans for people, and they would kept building, and then they would tear it down and rebuild it. And so what would end up is the house ended up just as a total maze. Going, you didn't know where you were going. Ooh. There were still stairs built to nowhere. There were doors that would open up that would just drop you outside.
What, is it still there?
Oh yeah.
Where is it?
It's in San Jose, California.
Okay,
and it's a huge tourist attraction.
Wow.
Yeah,
man, I'm going to put that on my list.
Yeah. Oh, it's worth seeing. It's interesting. It doesn't feel as haunted as you would expect. It just feels kind of weird.
So here's my saying. I can prove to you 100% whether the house is haunted or not.
How?
It's not. Grow up.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's my outlook. I don't really believe in there's ghosts and stuff. Yeah. So
I tend to believe a little bit more in there's some kind of energy.
Yeah. There is energy. I believe in that too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but the idea of a conscious ghost sitting there thinking and watching, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So that movie turned out well.
I was a little disappointed with it. I wrote the first draft, and then the directors...
Do they edit the draft after you write it?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, they edited it to where you weren't really pleased with it.
Oh yeah, I was not happy with the product. No, it didn't turn out as well as we had hoped.
So generally, do they use your script as a guideline, or do they use your whole script?
Well, they can do whatever they want because
they bought it.
They purchase it, they own it, they can do whatever you want. And I started out as a playwright, but when you write plays, the producers lease the play. They can't change a word without your permission.
Oh, so you were used to that.
I was kind of used to that when I got in, and then you quickly learn it's just a very different business. But also a huge difference is that they pay you so much more in film than they do in theater.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, what I was going to ask is, let's say you wrote like a blockbuster movie. Mm-hmm. Do you get a piece of the revenue, or do you just get paid that one time for writing it?
You get what is called residuals,
okay,
and that is when they sell it to territories, when they sell it to TV, any secondary sale to the film, the Writers Guild has a guaranteed amount that you will get. So if you have a slow year and things aren't going, particularly well, you didn't sell anything that year, you didn't get hired, you've got a little bit of residuals to kind of keep you going.
So is that a piece of like how they say, let's say this movie made $27 million the first day. Do you get a piece of that? Do you get a percentage of that?
No, you actually don't get any residuals from the theatrical distribution.
No?
Now, if the film does very well, it sells to cable for more, or sells to Netflix for more, and then you'll get a piece of that. And if you are a particularly successful or in-demand writer, you can negotiate like a higher fee and higher residuals. But I'm certainly not in that position where I can say I want more residuals.
But you've written some good stuff.
I think so, but I am certainly not an A-lister. Yeah.
Okay, what do those guys do? Where did you used to live in Los Angeles?
The last 20 years I've switched my time between Houston and LA.
Yeah, I lived out there. I didn't really like it too much.
It's not my favorite place. I miss my friends there, something terrible. I miss the creative energy there.
Yeah.
But
Hollywood? Did you live in Hollywood?
I lived, I spent a lot of time in Hollywood living there. And like I said, I've gone back and forth so often. So I've lived in the Valley. I lived in Hollywood. I lived under, on Beechwood, which is, right there at the Hollywood sign. And then,
I lived on La Brea and Sunset.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were not far from each
That's
other
a dump. But anyways, yeah. Okay, the reason I ask is because that's where Hollywood is. That's where you want to, do you pitch your movies there, or is it easy to pitch it from here?
It's a lot easier now because of the pandemic.
Okay.
One of the reasons I would go back and forth so much is because you just need FaceTime. So much of it's relationships. So much of it is people that you've worked with before.
Yeah.
People making sure they enjoy working with you. So I would go back to LA and I would pitch and I would live there for 6 or 7 years and then come back to Houston and then eventually have to go back. But since the pandemic, I haven't been back in a year. That's the longest I've gone without going back, to LA. So they're so much more used to Zoom meetings and, Los Angeles is a lot of hypochondriacs. So like they almost prefer Zoom meetings.
Yes, I know. I lived there and it was just, I think I have 2 friends still from there. I lived there 5 years. It's just like it's an impersonable place. I think so. I'm from Texas, first of all, but I lived in a little apartment complex and I've never met one of my neighbors ever.
Yeah, I can see that.
And because it's just like, I may never see you again. So they don't say hi to you. They don't say anything because I'm never going to see you again in my life. And we could live 2 streets down, but never see him again. So people just, that's what I thought about it.
I was a little lucky on that end where I'd get to be pretty friendly with people, but I've certainly lived in complexes where I never knew anyone's name.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, I mean, especially coming from Texas, your neighbors say hi or whatever, or you don't like them or whatever. Right?
At least you have them well enough to have an opinion about it.
Right, for sure. So writing screenplays, how did you start that? Were you a writer first? Did you take classes when you were younger?
I was an actor first. I was an actor.
You were an actor?
Yeah, I started out, and I wasn't professional at it, but that was my focus. And I went to Klein High School here in Houston. And back then in the 80s and 90s, Klein was a very serious drama department. We were nationally recognized as a good theater department. We would send actors routinely to Juilliard out of our school. So it was a.
So you wanted to be a famous actor?
I did.
Okay,
that was the plan,
and that's what got you into writing.
Yes, because when I was in college, I was frustrated that I wasn't getting cast as the leading man.
Okay.
And when I started writing, I realized, oh, I'm a character actor. That's why. that's why I wasn't cast as the leading man. But I was too young and too arrogant to put two and two together at that point. Yeah.
So what's the difference between like a character actor and like a lead? What would you have done differently?
Well, there's a certain presence. There's a certain leading man presence. There's certainly good looks. So much of all of that is fantasy.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would like to date that person in real life and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Whereas, I'm fairly regular Joe.
Me too.
But
yep.
I can make interesting choices that might be interesting to watch, but no one's watching me on stage going, "Oh, I'd like to date that guy."
When I say interesting choices, it's interesting because I make bad choices. But yeah, I got you. So after you were acting, you didn't give up on it. You just figured that you were better at writing.
Well, it was a way to. I figured there was just so many actors, and there weren't as many good writers. So, I was interested in politics. I was interested in history. I was interested in a lot of intellectual oriented things. And at some point, I realized my interest in acting, my interest in storytelling, my interest in human nature, history, all those things were actually pretty well represented in writing. So I started writing plays. And from there, we opened up a small theater in Houston, I think probably 1995.
You opened up a theater?
Yeah, me and some friends, we opened up a small theater.
Really? Where was it? Where is it?
It's gone now.
Oh, it's gone
now. It didn't last very long. Okay. But it was on Westheimer and Montrose. And so
that's a perfect location for something like that.
Oh, we thought we were going to be huge just because of our location.
Right.
We called it the Westmont Theater. So Westheimer and Montrose.
Okay.
But money was not our skill set. Raising money for a nonprofit with a bunch of 20-year-olds was
impossible.
It was a tough pitch, but we did good work and we did interesting pieces, and we got a lot of support in the press. And the Houston Chronicle put us on the cover of Zest, and the play that I had written, which opened the theater, got some really nice reviews. And out of the blue, I got a call from an agent in Los Angeles who had read the review and wanted to read the play, and that began a relationship with him. And then when the theater closed and, I was looking at my financial prospects, and being a playwright in the theater was not a livable wage.
Yeah.
Certainly not in Houston, Texas. So I kind of switched, and my first love was always movies anyway, and so it was a good fit. So I was a playwright, a character-oriented writer who loved genre films. And so it was...
What kind of genre?
At the time, I really loved action films.
Okay.
Yeah, that was...
80s was all action films,
80s and 90s were a great time for action films.
For sure.
Great time. And one of the things I'm doing with my mom lately is I go over there and I visit her and I spend the night, and we've been watching 90s action films.
Yeah.
And so many of them hold up. They hold up so well.
Yeah.
So I wrote an action film, and...
what was it?
It was a film at the time. God, what did I call it at the time? I think I might have called it The Mind's Eye.
The Mind's Eye?
Something
The
like
Mind's
that.
Eye?
Yeah, something like. But basically, it was Jacob's Ladder meets The Fugitive.
Okay.
And it was based off a very bizarre mushroom trip I had in college.
Yeah.
And so that inspired it. And I wrote this piece, and it was the first piece I optioned, and it actually eventually
what does
got
that mean?
made.
You optioned it. What does that mean?
It means a producer paid you money to option it, which is a little bit of money up front, and they had the exclusive right for a certain period of time to buy it.
And did they buy it and put it out?
Well, eventually, I think the third company that optioned it eventually made it, and it was a film. Eventually started as Unstoppable. But because that gets confused with the train film now, Unstoppable, it's now called 9 Lives.
9 Lives.
So it's I have a joke that I brag about launching Wesley Snipes' straight to DVD career. So that was the one that you wrote with that Wesley Snipes starred in. Yes.
Okay. All right. What about that horror one? What was the horror one? I watched some trailers to some of the movies. I don't know if you wrote the whole thing but the one that's the guy turns the mirror. Oh, it scared,
that's Winchester.
Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, that's one of the good gags in Winchester.
That one got me. Oh shit. Yeah, that was a good one. So you said you do mushrooms. You did mushrooms.
I'm sober now. Yeah, I'm 20 years sober now.
You know, I've done some reading on psychedelic mushrooms, and I've done some too. But they're saying that it helps with depression. It's clinically proven to help with depression. You know, and if you microdose it, you don't get high.
Yeah.
So they're saying that they're going to legalize it, which would be great.
It doesn't shock me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you do too much, it will ruin your night.
Man.
But I would imagine microdoses, little book, like where you just kind of notice it.
Yeah. Or they say microdosing, you don't even notice it. You just take it. Yeah. You don't even feel it, you know, and it's supposed to help with depression, which in my sport, it's a big thing. Cause I think it's, what is that? Traumatic brain injuries that we have, you know, and depression is a big thing. Anyways, let's get back to screenplays. So again, you got into that. You didn't take any formal writing courses or anything?
I studied with Edward Albee.
Which is
who is a, up until the time he died, was the greatest living American playwright. So he had written 3 Pulitzer Prize-winning plays. He had written one of the great American plays, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And we were very fortunate to have him at the University of Houston, where I studied.
Okay.
And Edward was such a genius, and you know, like all of us sitting in the room, like combined, would not match his talent for this particular
What made
thing.
him that?
That's the great question. Because he wasn't a great teacher because of it.
No, I understand.
Because he was so naturally gifted at it. He couldn't always explain why he did.
He's like, just do it. Like,
just do it like I do. Like,
I understand.
It's music in my ears. Make it music. And you're like, I don't know how to do that.
That's why I'm here in your class. Yeah. Okay.
But his greatest gift to me was giving me the confidence that I could do it. Like having his approval and having him, see my writing, write me letters of recommendation, and to even have discussions with him where I would leave the discussion feeling I was right. You know, it just gave me so much confidence that, I can do this. I can do this for a living. And it's one of, like when I teach students, of one of the key pillars is like building confidence and real confidence. You can fake it till you make it for a little bit,
right? But
eventually you have to earn the confidence. But if you can earn the confidence, it makes such a huge difference in your writing.
Man, so how do you make a living writing screenplays and plays too, right?
I stopped writing plays.
Okay, you stopped.
Yeah,
just screenwriting now.
Yeah, and I would love to write plays again, but it's financially costly.
Yeah,
like you're going to lose money on your time.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
Yeah.
I fought for a living. We didn't make any money.
You don't do it for the cash.
You do it because you like it.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you do it now? How do you do it?
Well, right now you option it. Most of your money is on assignments, really.
What kind of assignments?
Like Winchester was an assignment.
Okay.
Winchester was a producer, had the rights, and he set it up with a financier, and they went to a pitch off. And basically what that is they just keep seeing writers. Writers will come and pitch a story. And like, here's my version. Here's my version of your movie. I think you should do this. You should do this. Then this happens. And
so they tell you your version, but you write it how you want to write it.
So
within that context.
Yeah. So for example, they have the rights for this piece and they want to hire a writer. They go out to agents and say, hey, we have the property. We have this intellectual property. We need a writer. The agents then talk to their clients, and the clients go in and they come up with a pitch for the story. They do this all for free. So they spend a lot of time trying to figure out, this is how I would write your Winchester story. And they go in and they pitch, and they spend all that time, all that energy, and they try to convince you to hire them. And they keep going until they find a writer they like. And I think I was the 31st writer to pitch on the story.
Damn. How many does it normally take?
It's far less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally it's 6 or 7.
Yeah. And then they find somebody within 6 or 7?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it also, it's normally like they have their favorite writers already.
Right.
They already know who they
Right.
want to see. Like they already know who they like working with. And so it never really, if you want to come in and break into someone's circle, you have to come in with a pitch that blows them away. Otherwise, they're just going to hire someone they already are comfortable with.
So kind of like a director, I want Scorsese to direct this. So
yeah, you always
because
go to
of
the
his
safe
style,
guys. You
right?
always go with the safe picks because
Okay.
no one gets fired for hiring Scorsese. You know, like that. You're never going to get fired for that.
Yeah, for sure. So you live here and in L.A. You go back and forth.
I used to. I haven't so much. My father passed away 4 years ago, and so I spent that year, just staying close to my mom, staying close to family, and I would go back and forth, and then I ended up getting married, and we live here, and because of the pandemic, Zoom seems to be okay, but I'm a little late to get back. I got to get back just to get in front of people's faces, have coffee, have conversations, remind
Create
them I'm
relationships.
alive. Yeah, create and preserve.
Preserve relationships you already have. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the 3 C's of storytelling?
The 3 C's.
The 3 C's.
God, I'm not even.
Come on, this is like first. I mean, I don't know anything, so
Yeah.
It's a character, conflict, and conclusion, right?
I don't know. That's certainly not how I teach it.
So I was going to say, you teach storytelling too.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach me how to tell a better story.
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, storytelling's everything. Storytelling is a part of, our lives. It's how we communicate. It's how we sell.
That's how we saw. Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading your bio for this place and you're telling a story.
Yeah.
You're telling the story of your life.
Yeah.
And-
Let me cut you off here, but
Sure.
one thing someone told me when I was 20, I think, they said, listen, if somebody wrote a book about your life, would anyone want to read it? And that's how I tried to live my life since then.
Oh, that's
It
interesting.
makes your life pretty hard, but still, it was still pretty interesting. My life
Yeah.
was pretty interesting.
I have a kind of a riff off of a similar theme of the belief that anyone's autobiography would be interesting. That if you can structure it in a way, see the conflict, see what they care about, see what their stakes are, because everyone cares deeply about their own life.
Yeah.
Which is such a huge part of any
Wait a
story.
minute. Okay. So you're telling me anybody, so some guy, for me, death would be go to work, go home, go to work,
Right.
go home, like commute and go to business in an office and go home. But you could tell someone how to make that story interesting because it wouldn't be interesting to me.
No, but someone who goes into the office every day
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to break free of that. They don't want to do that every day.
Oh,
Or
see?
they care deeply about promotion, like I need to run this company. And story it's really about, in my mind, it's about transformation. It's about change. What changes you? What doesn't change you? Do you change at all? Which is often a tragedy. In my mind, there's 3 types of stories, because I define story in my classes as the transformation of a human being. And that is something that I can sink my teeth into. I can structure around. I can structure a story around it. I can create the criteria of everything I put in a story and everything I leave out. Like, does it support this transformation? So there's really 3 kinds. There's a story about someone who changes for the better. Sometimes they change drastically for the better. They're a terrible person at the beginning, and then they're a better person at the end. A Christmas Carol being the most famous example of a terrible human being.
Oh, yeah.
And then one of my favorite movies, Groundhog Day, is someone who's not a very likable person.
Yeah.
And you cast Bill Murray for that because you make him very likable.
Yeah.
And then they change. And then sometimes it's characters that change just a little bit. They're not terrible people, but they're semi-flawed, or they haven't grown yet. They haven't become the person they want to become or who they need to become. And then the second type of story is when a character remains steadfast. They remain steadfast in their beliefs. They know who they are. They believe in their cause. They believe in their purpose. And as a result, they change people around them. And they are drawn to this person who believes, and they're affected by it, and then they transform. And then the third type of story is when someone fails to change or changes too late. And then we call that a tragedy.
Oh, that's the tragic story. If I should have done this, but I didn't.
I should have done this, I should have done that, or I became worse. I used to be a better person, but this all affected me, and now I've destroyed everything in my life.
Oh.
Yeah, like that. But it's all about change.
But also, all of those stories are relatable to me. All of them, all three styles can be relatable, which is what you're looking for when you're telling a story or writing a story.
Yeah, I mean, we like to see ourselves in these stories one way or the other, either as a cautionary tale, or I've been there, or I want to be there. But everything filters through our own experience through stories.
Yeah, because when it's relatable, then you get more interested in it.
Yep.
And you'll watch it more.
Yep, you get engaged. You get emotionally committed.
So it's not about the plot. It's about what?
It is about story. Like, plot is so unimportant. People tend to think plot is important, but the only thing plot is really good for is the emotional reaction to the plot. Like that's all that matters. Any plot that doesn't create an emotional reaction is not particularly important. It's all about emotion. Like that's what we're trying to do. And as storytellers, that's what we're exchanging. That's our currency. When you go see a movie, you watch a TV show, you are in some way, shape, or form giving the creator currency. Like, here's my money, make me feel something. And then our job as storytellers is to do that. It makes you feel something. And if you feel something, you say thank you, and you feel like your money was well placed.
And you want to watch it more.
And then you want to watch it more. And the same thing happens if the exchange is something else. Maybe I want you to buy something. I want like a sales copy. Then I make you feel something. I make you feel the desire, make you feel happy, make you feel fearful or scared if you don't have this thing. Then but you're telling a story to generate emotion.
Oh, I could use that.
You already do. I guess so. I saw your bio.
Yeah, I guess
how much joy you get in this, and like your travels of like when you were a kid, you got exposed to this, and you loved it.
Damn, you did read my stuff.
Yeah.
It's not about me; it's about you. Okay. So you have a course though where you can teach people to do this.
Yeah, I teach at my beloved alma mater, the University of Houston.
Oh, you teach at the U of H? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it's a class or?
Well,
or it's
I teach screenwriting at U of H, and then I also teach online. So I have courses for screenwriting, and it's gotten to the point because I started teaching maybe 20 years ago.
Okay.
And I was real nervous about it because there's so many people teaching screenwriting who probably shouldn't be teaching screenwriting.
I mean, same with Muay Thai, what we do. But you're okay. Go ahead.
And I was a professional screenwriter for 6 years at that point, and I was still kind of nervous about it. Of like, I don't want to be one of those guys who's teaching. It really shouldn't be teaching.
I was the same way. Yeah.
And I started doing it, and I enjoyed it, and I was good at it, and I could see the differences in the students. Like, I can see the change you were making.
That's a big thing that'll drive you to keep going.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love seeing light bulbs go off. I love seeing people excited about what they create. And, I've really gotten to the point now where I consider myself a writer and a teacher. And I'm sure you've had this exact same experience where, oh my God, now that I'm teaching this, I'm becoming better at it myself.
Oh, way better. I wish I was as good as I am now.
Yeah.
Back when I was actually competing, I would have been way better.
When your body was younger.
I was terrible. Yeah, for sure. That too.
You have all these things that you've been doing naturally, and now you're forced to explain why. And then once you explain why, it then becomes a tool. And so I can access these tools now at any time, whereas before I like the talent had to show up that day. You're not always in the mood to write. You're not always in the mood to, push this forward. Your talent isn't there every day. You're not in the zone every day. But if you can take these things that you used when you were in the zone unconsciously and you can turn them into tools, then you have access to them when you're not in the zone.
Oh, that's a great idea. I've never thought about it like that. Like, you feel good today. I feel like I'm in the zone. I'm ready to go in anything that you do.
Yeah.
And you figure out why, and then you can use, that's a good, that's
and
great.
Now there are tools in your tool belt.
That's great.
Yeah. And so, and particularly when you work at it for a living and you have assignments and like, they don't care if you're in the mood. They like, you can't explain to them like, no, man, talent didn't show up yesterday. So I'm late.
I don't feel like it today. Fuck you. No, you can't do that.
And it also creates a floor as well of because I have turned a lot of the talent and I've been teaching it and progressively more and more turning it into craft. It is the quality of my work has a floor. Like, it's not ever going to be horrible.
Oh, okay. All right.
It is going to be at a professional standard every time. Mm-hmm. And some scripts I will nail and it like that's, that's when you love it. But it's like any filmmaker, any artist, whether they're a songwriter, anything, a poet, they never get better and better and better and better every time. It's some days, like some material, like even Billy Wilder is one of my favorite filmmakers. It wasn't every film was better than the last. Scorsese is not every film is better than the last. But they're all at a certain standard.
Yeah.
They're all at a certain standard. And sometimes things work out great and it's a masterpiece. And then the next film is pretty good. Maybe not as good as, we're used to from them, but certainly much better than any other normal person.
Absolutely.
And so when you kind of take those skills and you turn them into craft, you are setting a floor for how bad it could possibly be. And that floor is pretty high. I'm always going to deliver a certain amount of quality. Some scripts are going to be better than others. Some scripts are going to nail.
Right.
But there's always going to be, and that's how you make a living at it, is like you set that floor of they know when they hire me, it's going to be at least this.
Yeah.
And they may get, really great, but they're going to be at least this. Whereas with an unknown writer, they don't really know, like they haven't turned this into a professional craft yet. So they may have a script that they nail and they're great and they're fantastic. And everyone's like, you're an amazing writer, but they have no idea how they did that or why. And so there's no consistency there. That's, we often call it the sophomore slump, is because they did it out of pure talent and talent showed up that day.
Right.
But the next time it's like, well, I don't really kind of know why that worked the last time. And so now this is not acceptable.
So you don't know where their floor is yet.
You don't know where their floor is yet.
But the hard part about that, it's just like applying for a job. I have no experience. Well, I can't hire you. Well, I can't ever get experience unless you hire me. So it's kind of like right there, stopped.
Yeah,
right?
And that's why so many people write scripts so long without getting paid, is because that's when they're establishing their floor. Is you keep doing it until you understand this craft well enough, and now you've got a floor. And then the other good thing about knowing the craft and knowing just the mechanics and the fundamentals of it is that you can fix it when it's not working. Like, that's a huge part, because sometimes you'll write stuff and it's just not working. And if you don't know the fundamentals, you don't know the craft, then you're just you're putting the same mechanism back in that created the difficulty to begin with, because you don't know.
So how do you find out that it's not working? How do you know where to change, what to change?
Well, that's the thing, is that if you don't have the craft, you can't figure it out.
Right. And you teach that, right?
Yeah.
How? I don't get it. Like, my brain doesn't wrap around, like, how do you teach someone to tell a better story and where it's working and where it's not working?
It's a good question, because my philosophy is you can't, and I don't know if you've had the same experience with your students, but I suspect you. I just don't want to speak for you.
Okay, go ahead.
But there are some people that you will never be able to teach how to do it well.
Yes, I've had that.
Yeah. They don't have the talent base.
Yeah.
And so you're you're looking at people who have some talent at it. And if they're extremely talented, great. They actually need you the least, but you can still help them considerably. Like, you will cut down their learning curve considerably. If you give me a really, really talented writer, I can cut their learning curve in half. And so they are making a living at it faster than they would have without me. And I've done that many times. But I also know the big advantage was that they were talented.
Yeah.
That was the big advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I cut that learning curve in half, and I'm proud of that. But they eventually would have been fine.
Right.
And then there's those that are mildly talented. And those are the ones that you probably have the most effect on, because like I consider myself one of those people where I have some talent at it, but I had to learn how to do this.
That's me too.
I had to put
Same.
the effort into figuring it out.
But you know what I've found? I have found that extremely talented people take it for granted.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they don't work as hard as the person with a little talent that works twice as hard. And usually the person that has a little talent ends up surpassing them because they had to work for it and they believe in it more. These guys just are like, yeah, I can do that. It's easy.
That is a very similar speech I give to my students sometimes, is that like you can make up for it. Like you can make up for it and you can beat out the more, because what they'll do is they'll judge themselves the first year and they'll look at someone more talented than them and be like, I'm not as good as they are. I probably shouldn't do this. And you have to explain to them of like, in 2 years, if they don't put in the work you do, you'll be ahead of them. That
Absolutely.
You can make up for that.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it many times. And again, just using myself as an example, I've been doing this for 25 years. And the biggest thing I have brought to the table is a desperation to get better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that gives you drive to do it and get better and learn.
Yeah.
And always bettering yourself. It's similar in competition. Even if you win, you're like, I didn't do good. And people think that that's a bad thing, but it's a good thing because in your head, you could do better.
Yeah.
So I think it would relate.
Yeah.
It's relatable.
Oh yeah. No, the comparison I give the most is to athletics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How?
Just about one, there's so few spots where you make a living. Like if you are a football player, and there are more professional football players per year than people selling feature scripts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's the kind of numbers you're dealing with. And you're also dealing with talent compared to effort. And you're dealing with the headspace and the mental makeup, the ego, the voice, choking and at the worst moments because like the ego. And so I look at a lot of some of the coaches that I admire, particularly at U of H, because I follow U of H sports. I'm, as you can tell, I'm a big I love my alma mater.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my life and has been for almost 40 years. And I look at a lot of their philosophies and how they approach who they recruit, how they coach. And it is, and then the other comparison I do is improv comedy. I compare that a lot.
I love comedy, dude.
Yeah.
I've seen Netflix is the main place now because they have a comedy section. Every stand-up there is on there. I've watched every one of them. Every one of them. Yeah.
Do you ever watch much improv comedy?
I've been to a couple. I think that improv comedy, you have to be there live. It kind of feels better.
Oh yeah, you cannot watch it recorded.
And they messed with me before too, like at an improv play. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I studied a lot of improv comedy when I was in LA. It was kind of my creative community. And there's a lot of principles there that kind of apply as well. And so the two things I compare writing to the most are athletics and improv comedy.
Wow. Okay. So let's get off on improv comedy. I think you have to be super witty and sharp to be an improv comedian. But you're saying you could teach someone how to be like that?
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
What?
yeah, they have it down to. But again, it's the same thing of like some people are naturally more talented, some people are a little less talented and learn how to be it. But if you have no talent at it, there's just nothing you can do. But
that's probably me. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
but you don't have to be as witty as you think.
Really?
That's the nice thing of like knowing what your mission is. Like that's such a core thing. Like I teach that so much. And I was really influenced because I loved military strategy when I was a kid. I would read a lot of military strategy. And I wanted to be in the military before I ever got into the arts. And as I got older, I got more interested in business strategy and business philosophy. And a lot of it is so much about the mission of like focusing on the mission, making sure you have a very clear set of objectives, know what victory looks like. And I teach something very, very similar to that, whereas your mission statement is your story, of defining your story up front, knowing what your story is. This is a story about a person who is this way, who goes through this journey and ends up this way. And if you know that ahead of time, you know what that is, a lot of your decisions along the way are becoming like exponentially much easier because you know what those decisions are trying to support.
How do you figure out what your mission is? Let's say, I mean, it doesn't have to be in a story. Let's say in life. How do you figure out what your mission is? Well, that's why people love mission statements. They love like, what is the mission statement for your life? What do you consider victory? What do you consider a successful life? And a lot of people suggest of like, hey, write your obituary. Like, what does that look like? Yeah. And then you write what you want your obituary to look like. And then you start making choices for that because everything is about resources. Everything is about the distribution of resources. And if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, you have no criteria by which to distribute your resources. So if you know what you're trying to do, you distribute your resources towards that. And resources that go to anything other than the mission statement is considered a waste of your resources. And so you don't do it. So you've only got so many pages in a script. You've only got so many scenes. You've only got so many moments. Do you want to have scenes, moments, and pages that go to something other than your primary mission, which is this particular story? Wow. My mind blew up right there. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Wow. Yeah, so it made me think about life a little bit too much.
Yeah, and like this, I mean, clearly, like you've got this beautiful business here, and like your resources are going to this.
Yeah, I kind of thought that I wanted to be a fighter first, and I fought a lot, but I'm better at teaching. And I think that my purpose is to help people.
Yeah.
Either get better in weight or losing weight or competing that's what I do.
Yeah.
I help people.
Yeah.
And I enjoy helping people.
Yeah. And just knowing that like is such a huge victory.
Yeah. I mean, you always question it though. You always question what you're doing. I mean, I always question, am I doing it right? Am I really helping anybody? And sometimes you get people, you probably get it too, people that write you and say, I did this and it was amazing and it was because of you. And that's what keeps me going.
God. I show my wife those emails all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like fun to share them as well.
It's
like,
awesome.
Look, this, and because, screenwriting is not the most, or teaching screenwriting is not nearly as profitable as screenwriting. And there have been some years where it's really helped, like it kind of like rounded out the edges of like, oh, this was a slow year. I'm glad I teach on the side as well. But it is the joy and the feeling of accomplishment that I will often get from teaching that I will not get from, making movies.
100%. 100%. I get an email once every couple months. Something happened and it changed my life. And I was like, I just taught you how to punch somebody. How did I change your life? Yeah. So I'm sure that you get those too.
Yeah. I had a student the other day refer to my course as life-changing. And the reason why is because we talked about, emotion. We talked about storytelling, and she wrote a novel, which was really great. I've read it, to my little girl 3 times now.
Oh, wow.
And she wrote that novel after our classes. But the thing that really changed her is that she writes for clients now. She writes, a lot of copy for clients. She helps people, but she says all the skills that she does for that, she learned from our classes as far as just writing emotionally, like focusing on the emotion, focusing on human beings, focusing on emotional truth. And just having that effect on them that wasn't even directly screenwriting was like a huge,
but it reminds me of what you said on your website, and that you have to create emotion in someone, and that's what people feel. They feel that and want to continue watching or reading or something like that.
Yeah, it is film and stories are an emotional delivery system.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sports is the same. The story of a game, of who wins, who loses, and if it's a blowout, it's not.
And the hardships in between.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's part of a good story, right?
We love the stories of these people. Of like, we love comeback stories. We love
big time. Yes.
Yeah, that's it adds to our emotion, and at the end of the game, if it's a blowout, no one's really interested. We want that game that is settled in the last second.
That bomb touchdown just won the game.
Yeah, they had Arizona State this week, and Arizona State won by like over a half court shot in the last second. And watching the difference of emotion between those two teams and it was away too. So that poor crowd, they're up by 2 points with like 2 seconds left. And it's just a miracle shot.
Up by 2 points, and he shot a three.
He shot a three from behind half court.
Wow.
Like never shot. One in a, 20,000 shot. And it went in. And just watching the difference of emotion between the two benches. and the Cougs lost about 4 years ago. They lost a chance to go to the Sweet 16 on not quite as a miraculous shot, but a shot that should not have gone in, and it went in, and the Cougs lost, and it was devastating.
Yeah,
it was devastating, particularly for Houston basketball, because they've been out in the desert for so long, and now the last 4 or 5 years they've become a national powerhouse, and it's just been so much like the story of what Kelvin Sampson has done with this program that was irrelevant for 25 years, and again, just a great story, and.
That's awesome how you can equate events in life and sports and everything to a story.
Yeah, because it's about change and transformation.
Yeah, maybe you can teach this stuff. Yeah. Huh? Like I'm just thinking in my head, like I'm not good at telling stories. I've had a very interesting life. Crazy but interesting, right? I couldn't write that in a book and make people want to read it. I mean, I could tell somebody these stories and they may be able to like ghostwrite it for me or something like that. But listening to you equate everything to a story.
Yeah. And, just that what I was talking about earlier about anyone's life could be an interesting biography.
If you have a good person writing it.
Well, because it's all structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you structure out the story? And all structure is what the audience knows and when they know it. And
that's amazing, dude. That's amazing.
All it is so like whether you're a comedian, whether you're a poet, a musician, a painter, anything, any kind of creative artist whatsoever, even like an ad salesman,
a boxer,
writing copy. It's what does the audience know and when do they know it? And so you move events around to maximize narrative momentum and emotional resonance. So like a story with scenes in a certain order is very different than the exact same story with scenes in a different, that's the huge difference in storytelling of building up tension, building up emotion, and you're looking for things to move in a way that has momentum so the audience is engaged the entire time, and you're looking to position it in a way that maximizes the emotional experience. So like you say you have
That's amazing, dude. Yeah. How you explain that. Absolutely.
So you're like for your biography, your theoretical biography, which has great scenes in it. There are great moments in it.
There's bad moments too.
And those are important.
Okay.
The bad moments are important. And when we talk about great scenes and great sequences, we're not necessarily talking about like fun. Like sometimes it's tragic.
Yeah.
Some of the great scenes in The Godfather are all tragic scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
They're horrible scenes to watch. Sonny, what happened to Sonny?
For sure.
And so you would kind of collect those scenes and put them up on the wall or anything where you can kind of visualize them and start figuring out what is the best order to put these scenes that's going to give the audience momentum, where they're always engaged, they're always trying to figure out, or they don't want to go to a bathroom break, they want to keep watching. And then in what order are you going to maximize the emotional effect on them? And if you can figure that out, and there are certain fundamentals to it, like there are sort of like, we want a dramatic question at this point. We want a shift or a change every 10 or 12. Like we spent a lot of time of the last 2,000 or 3,000 years learning how to tell better stories. And now that good storytelling has become so profitable, it's such a profitable thing to do. The last 50 years, we have learned 10 or 20 times more about good storytelling than we had the last 2,000 years combined. It's like anything. As soon as something becomes profitable, people learn how to get better and better and better at it. I mean, just again, looking back at like physical, like athletics, like look at our training for athletes now compared to 20, 30 years ago.
And we'd kill them. We'd kill them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just the science. I mean, it is the science, but it's the fact that resources were going into the science because it became so profitable.
Absolutely. So let me cut off and ask you this. YouTube is pretty profitable for certain people.
Yeah.
They make so much money. Could you, let's say for me, write me something that, or something that would grow a channel to where it would be profitable, super profitable, like any kind of story, any kind of crazy shit you could think of, but write it to where it goes, okay, you should do this, this, and this, and that would engage people. And then on the next video, do this, this, and this. Could you do that?
I certainly would say the importance of storytelling is there. But if you're looking at social media, because I have the same question, because I would like to grow my presence with, and I have a tiny YouTube channel that I don't really spend any resources on.
Okay, what is it? I'll link it.
It's called Story. Everything's I try to combine with Story and Plot, which is the name of my class.
That's your website as well, right?
Yeah, storyandplot.com.
Okay.
And so what I like if I had my druthers, I would just write and teach. That's all I would do.
Yeah.
I would just write and teach, and I would have, someone handle the marketing, someone handle like the pitching and all that. Like that would be, but I want to grow these things. And so, I've been kind of, doing as much studying as I can about what moves a YouTube channel, what moves Twitter. And there are experts and these content creators who they are just like, we do what we do, they do what they do, and they've got this stuff down to a science of how to grow a YouTube channel. What are the algorithms? What work? What are the changes in the algorithms? And it affects the decisions they make. You see a lot of podcasts moving to YouTube, and I know you have it on YouTube as well. And which I didn't even think about this. I was like, well, podcast, why was it on TV? But apparently, it's the discoverability. Because podcasts have no discoverability. You either get a direct link to a podcast or you don't. That's it. Like someone recommends it,
right?
Or you never hear of it,
right?
Whereas YouTube has an algorithm that starts to kind of figure out what you're watching, what you like,
totally,
and it will introduce you to this thing, and so you can discover it on your own. And there's little things like that me as a teacher and a writer would never think about. I just never think about it. But it is like a core concept now of why so much is going back to YouTube is because of discoverability. And on Twitter, I'm not a big Twitter guy, but I'm noticing the difference with when I do certain things that the content creators recommend.
Okay.
Like threads. They have a big, like do threads. And so I'm taking some of my lessons and I am putting them as Twitter threads. And I did one this weekend and I had more engagement in that Twitter thread than I have the last 2 years.
I think that because it makes it searchable, I think, on the internet. And then when it makes it searchable, it links to your other things that you have, your website and your YouTubes and things like that. And
and then of course you have to deliver, like you get discoverability, but if they discover you and don't like you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We don't like those people anyway. but let's get back to the question. Could you write something that would, who's the top YouTuber? I don't know. I think Mr. Beast.
Yeah, I think that I still don't know what he does or who he is, but I hear his name a lot.
He just does crazy shit. Like, we're going to get 18 million balloons and drop them down on this thing. And he has a lot of money, obviously, because from doing that. But he started with nothing.
With nothing.
And just tried to make bigger and bigger and bigger. And now he makes a lot of money.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's telling stories in each video.
Absolutely. And that's why I ask you, could you do that for someone? Do you think that you could
I could teach them concepts of story. I can certainly teach them of like what makes a good story, why something is interesting, how to structure out the story.
Yeah.
Like I could absolutely teach them that. Yeah.
So would they have to come up with the concept, or could you do that too?
I would assume they would have to come because they do what they do of like what their channel is. But yeah, I mean, like a story structure is pretty consistent throughout the ages.
I'm going to take your course. Damn, dude. We've been talking for like an hour and I already want to take your course. That's good.
Yeah, I would definitely I have a course called Mastering Structure, and it's all about story structure. And it definitely focuses on movies, but the principles are all the same. The principles are all the same of how to have an ordinary world where this is the stasis and then the inciting incident. And like, what is the thing that changes that ordinary world? And then a protagonist, whether it's Mr. Beast or it's Luke Skywalker, and how they decide to react to that inciting incident. And then they make a decision and they decide to solve this problem.
Oh,
and
that's good.
Yeah. And then the question is for the audience is, will they solve this problem? And then we watch them go through that. Now, the key thing for story is that the person that they are at the beginning is really unable to solve the problem. Like they're not equipped to do it. Like Rocky's not ready to beat Clubber Lang.
No,
in the beginning. Like, he's not. And through this story, through this transformation, they then change. And that's what Act 2 is for. A lot of people don't understand what Act 2 is for. And the whole point of Act 2 is not just conflict and struggle. That's fun to watch and it's important.
It's the resolution.
It is to change the character so they can resolve the problem.
Oh.
Yeah, because you have 3 acts. I actually write in 4 acts, but everyone speaks in language of 3 acts. So, I teach Act 1, Act 2A, 2B, because the midpoint's very important in the middle, and then Act 3. And the job of Act 2, 2A and 2B, is to transform the character so they are finally ready. Because if you force the character in the opening to try to resolve that problem directly, they will fail. They have to change. They have to go through this adventure and learn what they need to learn. And then because of that change, they're actually able to solve their problem in the 3rd act.
Also, if you solve it in the 1st act, then there's no more 2 and 3.
Because I had that same question when I was like trying to learn structure. I was like, why aren't we just going to Act 3? Like,
why don't we just solve this shit right now, right off the bat?
Does he blow up the Death Star or not? Let's just go straight there.
Well, because then you don't have a story.
But then you don't have a story. That was my answer. It's like, well, you don't have a story. But the real practical reason is for that growth. Because if you force them to answer it in the 1st act, they fail. They absolutely fail. Like Luke Skywalker in Act 3, he's got R2-D2, he's got the Death Star plans, he's got Han Solo who helps him, he has the other rebel pilots. These are all things he's earned through Act 2. And then most of all, he's learned the Force where he's able to turn off the targeting computer. But all of those things he did not have in Act 1. He gained all of those things through Act 2. And it was only because of Act 2 that he was able to solve the problem.
Wow, you broke that shit down good, dude. See, I'm amazed at things that other people do. I teach Muay Thai and I'm pretty good at it. And some people are like, I couldn't do that. Well, I couldn't do what you do, but I like learning. So that's kind of why I have you here. You know,
I appreciate it. This was fun.
It's pretty amazing and very interesting. And I'll tell you about that YouTube thing later. I'll grill you on that too.
Okay.
So I have 10 questions that I ask in my podcast.
Okay.
And they're relatively different compared to depending on what you do.
Sure.
So the first thing is, what's your favorite thing about storytelling and writing screenplays or teaching? One or the other. What's your favorite thing?
One of my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, through everything, and if I could probably do it more often, I probably would focus on it more, but it's such a rare thing. But I love being in the audience with an audience when they are reacting the way I wanted them to through a play or a movie.
So you go and sit in the audience and watch something that you've written and their reaction.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to study too.
Yeah, it's great. And it's one of the reasons why I loved improv comedy, is because it was so immediate. It was so immediate, and I didn't have to rehearse. It was just that immediate gratification. But I guess I'm just the same comedy slut anyone is. I was just like, there's just something great about a laugh, about getting a laugh.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't know why. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then you see them jump at, like, if it's a terror moment or something like that. I really, really enjoy that part. And there's so much I enjoy. But if I had to choose, and hell, I may change my mind next week.
That's all right.
I really like creation, like filming. But right now, the first thing that comes to mind is I love being in the audience when they're watching something of mine and it's working.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you know why it's working and they don't, which is even better.
Yeah, it's working. I designed it to work this way.
Okay. So what's your favorite story you've ever written?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Like two of my favorite scripts never got made.
The movies never got made?
Yeah, like I wrote the scripts, but they didn't get made.
Okay.
I had one script that I was hired to write, and I was hired to write it, and it was a guy named Hallelujah who lived in Japan.
His name was Hallelujah?
His name was Hallelujah. And he was famous in Japan because he lived on the street, and you could pay him like $5, $10, whatever it was, and you could try to punch him as much as you wanted to for 2 minutes.
Oh, he wouldn't have a good time with me.
And no, I don't think we're the target market.
I wouldn't do that.
And so, but his ability was like he could bob and weave.
Okay.
He can't punch you back, but he can bob and weave.
Right.
And apparently this director who spent some time with him thought he was the most calm, most pleasing person to be around, that he was just so present. He was so alive in the moment, like a Buddhist monk of some sort. And so I was hired to write this script. The problem is that what story is that? Like, I don't know how to end that up. And so you had to manufacture a really interesting story through structure of how
about him. So you didn't know his backstory about why he's on the streets or anything? Because that would be important.
Well, that ended up being what the story was about.
Okay.
You know, it was like trying to figure that. But the transformation is still him on the street getting punched.
Yeah.
Like that's. But we didn't want a tragedy, because what was interesting about him was just at how disarming he was to be around, and so it was positioned as not a tragedy, but as this is a really interesting man who seems to understand something we don't, and we feel good around him. So because there's no genuine story there, I had to manufacture one through 4 different timelines, 4 different structures. And it was some of my best writing, virtuoso writing of getting a non-story into a story that I thought was some of my best work. And I turned that script in, and that director hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Did you pitch it to any other director?
Well, he hired me. So
he hired you for that. Oh,
so he owned it. I wrote it and he owned it. But to this day, I look back of like, man, that was some true professionalism of me turning something out of nothing into that script. And then he hated it. And then there was another one where a film was greenlit. They were going to make it in greenlit means like we're committing money.
Like we're making it. We just need somebody to write it. Let's go.
But it was already written.
Okay.
But it was unshootable. It was so bad. And the only reason they were making it is because there was a writer's strike and they were trying to just generate and create as much content as they can because they didn't know how long the strike was going to last. And so they hired me to rewrite it, but it was already cast. The locations were already chosen. The story was already there, but it was unshootable. And so I rewrote that thing and turned it from something that was absolutely horrible to mediocrity. and
I turned it into something.
Yeah, I turned it into like, I guess it was okay. But that, again, is like some of my best work was turning that script to mediocrity in a limited time frame.
It was that hard.
It was terrible. It was a terrible piece.
Then why did they keep the same script? Why didn't they change the whole thing?
Because of the writer's strike.
Oh.
They was like, we need content. We need to have movies when this strike is going on. So we're just going to generate content. It is called Dead in a Heartbeat. I don't know if you can still see it at all. It's not a very good film. But me and the director both know that we made a mediocre movie out of nothing.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You're proud of a mediocre movie.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, when you hear your story about it from shit to mediocrity, okay,
yeah. Like
awesome.
in 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It was like, I mean, they had the locations, they had cast.
We got to shoot right now. Let's go.
Like you got to do something. And I just went in, and one of the actors sent me a bottle of champagne because like
he's like, thanks for not making me act this bullshit. And
at least he had something. He had some scenes to act in. And that movie, even though it was mediocre, it actually is. There's one of my favorite scenes I wrote in that movie.
Yeah?
Yeah. So there is a good scene in there.
What's it called again?
Dead in a Heartbeat.
Dead in a Heartbeat. So I'm going to watch it, and then I'll ask you what your favorite scene is.
You'll know.
Yeah, I'll know?
Yeah, you'll know.
It's like the best scene in a mediocre movie?
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, the next thing is, what's your least favorite thing about doing what you do?
Unfortunately, it's probably... One, you do a lot of free work. That's the worst part of it. You do a lot of free work trying to get work. But I think a lot of creative people have to do that. I think ad agencies have to do that. Marketing people. They're like, we got to come up with a pitch, and you spend all this time and you don't get the gig. But I am just now the last 5 or 10 years getting better at getting notes.
What's that mean? Getting notes?
It's just when they come in and they give you notes and they tell you what's not working, do this, do that. I had a real hard time with it early in my career, and I wasn't that. And this is back before I quit drinking. And like I was not the most pleasant person to work for, and I shot myself in the foot several times with my career. My career would be very, very different if I was who I am now at the early bit of my career.
Shit, me too.
Yeah. And just young, stupid, drunk.
Yeah, me too.
Arrogant, thinking I was more special than I was.
For sure.
But I've grown into it a bit more of like, okay, this is a collaboration. This is, these are people. We're all trying to make a good movie. We're all trying to do this. But I had a real hard time with that
So it was you against everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just such a bad attitude.
Yeah. When we're young, we think that a lot. Shit.
Yeah. Like you guys are trying to ruin what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And now we're all in this together. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, that's smart. That's a better way of looking at it.
Yeah. And it just makes the experience more fun. And now I work with producers, multiple times. Whereas in like early in my career, people were like,
one time, and then we're not going to work with that asshole.
We've had enough with Vaughan.
That's funny, dude. And I think that goes with everybody when they're younger. I think we're older and smarter, and I'm wishing that I would have listened to the older generation back then is a huge thing. And I try to tell these kids the shit that I learned, and they don't fucking listen. You know?
And it's hard to get mad at them.
Because we were the same. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. Okay, so what do you hate about the business?
Well, the business is shrinking right now. So that's
how so?
They're making less content now. Residuals are going down because shows are disappearing.
Why do you think that is?
They expanded too quickly. It's like
the whole business.
Yeah, the whole business. They were creating too much content too quickly, and it's now shrinking. So hopefully it will be just an ebb and flow. But right now there is such a focus on IP, on intellectual property, on pre-existing intellectual property. So really, most of the money is going to assignments. And assignments are, like I said, they're tough. You have to spend a lot of time and effort, and you don't always get the job. In fact, you rarely do. And so now the good thing is when you do get the job, you get paid well enough to kind of cover all the work you've done.
So you said before an assignment is when someone tells you
they hire you.
They hire you?
Here's our comic book. Here's our book. Here's our idea. Here's the script we want you to rewrite, but it's something pre-existing.
Okay.
And they hire you to write it. So like we just got done with the Queen Mary movie, and that was a script that existed before me. Someone else did the first draft, and then I was hired to come in and rewrite the new draft. And
it's about the Queen Mary in Long Beach?
Yeah, it's another haunted
right?
house movie.
Yeah, haunted boat.
The Queen Mary.
Yeah. I used to live out there, so I know. I worked in... There's a plant. I worked in oil refineries, so I know. In Long Beach.
Long Beach. Yeah, there's a lot of those, a lot of industrial stuff out there. But that was an assignment. Like I was hired to write that. So,
did you write the whole thing? Was there contributing writers, and do they change it?
There were 3 writers total. There was the first writer, and then I came in and rewrote that writer, and then the director came in and decided to rewrite the whole thing. And then he came in.
What?
Yeah. So I ended up with story credit and not screenplay credit on that one.
So he rewrote all. He took your story, and then rewrote it.
Yeah, he rewrote it. Yeah.
Did directors often do that?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So directors are writers then?
No.
What the?
No. They think they're writers.
Oh, is that what it is?
There are some writer-directors out there that are very, very good, better writers than I am.
Okay.
But the struggle is when it's a director and they don't quite understand what the writing is. And it's also why I'm trying to move more into producing as well, and then even directing again. So
you don't want to write, you want to produce stuff?
Well, I want to produce and direct what I write.
That's even better.
Yeah, to preserve it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I do like producing other writers.
Yeah?
I really enjoy that, developing material with other writers.
So developing what kind of material?
Right now, mostly horror. It's because it sells. And those where a lot of my relationships are within that world. So I try to find writers that are out there that, because that's how I got started. My script, the Wesley Snipes script, we went out with that and we didn't sell it at first. And then a producer, he read it and said, this is great. This is a great script, but there are certain things I want to show you how to do better. And so he mentored me and we did another draft of that script. We changed the title. And we went out with it again. We changed the name of the character so no one knows it's the same script we went out with before. But all the things that he had taught me to kind of make it a better read, slim it down, make it more enjoyable. And then that's how we ended up selling it. And I have, such a debt to that producer.
Which is who? Who is it?
His name is Jim Wida.
Okay.
He's still in the business, which is great. Still a friend of mine.
I think I read his name. Not that I knew who he was, but on your website.
He's really good at what he does. And he's a manager. So he reps clients as well. He never really exploded into the A-list, but that's such a rare territory. But anybody that's been around as long as we have, it's a struggle. Most of the writers that I came into the business with are gone. Like most of the producers that I came into the business with are gone. Most of the executives that I came into the business are gone. It has such a high turnover, and it is the haves and the have-nots. It is either very, very wealthy producers, very wealthy individuals, and then a lot of young people. And there's not a huge middle class because the longevity isn't there. So like if you if you don't get relatively rich over the first 10 or 15 years of your business, you're probably going to switch.
Yeah, this is Hollywood stories, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
So, but like I've been a middle-class writer for 25 years. Jim's been a middle-class producer and manager for 25 years, and he's really good at what he does. So like we still have projects together. I still hope to make movies with Jim.
That's cool.
Yeah. But what I like to do is do the same thing he did for me, which is take a writer who's almost there, mentor them, show them certain things. They have a great idea. They have they have a lot of talent, make their writing better, just kind of push them over the goal line. And it's kind of a free option on the script that you are putting sweat equity into instead of a check.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like teaching. You're teaching. It's pretty rewarding. I mean, on occasion, it's rewarding.
Yeah.
So man, I had something to ask you. I forgot. That's what happens when you get hit in the head a lot.
I understand.
I mean, sorry.
That's what happens when you drink a lot.
Oh, man. So what in life do you love? Besides screenplay and family, everybody says family, but everybody loves their family. They should.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Besides the obvious.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny because I do love my work so much. It takes up a lot of my time. But for whatever reason, and I still to this day, I'm not quite sure why. I guess I don't, I love U of H sports.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that
all the sports.
I'm trying to right now. It's basketball, women's volleyball, which I've fallen in love with this year, and then of course football. And I want to be able. And I've got an office over there, so I want to be able to walk to games, and that's kind of my happy place. to be able to just go and walk to games and watch games, and that's my favorite hobby right now.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom earlier today of like I started school at U of H in 1988.
Yeah.
And I dropped out of college in 93 to open up that theater. And then I went back to U of H in 2003 just to kind of take some classes. And then in 2005, I went back full time to get my degree. And I got my degree in political science there. And then in 2019, I was invited to come teach a advanced screenwriting class there. And then in 2021, I started teaching consistently there. So every decade since 1988,
you've been at U of H.
I have spent significant time at U of H.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a course you can take at U of H?
If you're a student at U of H, you can take the screenwriting course. I am pretty much designing the screenwriting curriculum there now. So, and having a blast doing it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
wow.
I love being there. I love the energy. I miss the creative energy of Los Angeles and the improv comedy community there. But the U of H creative community helps a lot too. Like that helps. It's not quite the same because they're all learning and I'm more of a mentor and a teacher there. Whereas I was what word I'm looking for, a compatriot or colleague in LA. Like we were all on the same level. I mean, I had a little more experience, but I love the energy there. I love being back at the theater where I studied. I love having a relationship with the professors, the theater school there, even though I teach at the communications school. And like I said, I love being able to walk over to basketball games. And
man, if you love your job, I don't know who said this, but you never work a day in your life,
I am so fortunate that way. Because my wife teaches middle school. Okay. And a lot of times she loves it and sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes it's a grind.
That's with everything.
Yeah, sometimes it's a grind. Yeah. And she sees me love my job.
That's fantastic.
Like Monday mornings are like, I love Monday mornings. I get to, I'm either writing or I'm teaching or I am trying to market my classes, but like I don't spend any significant time with anything I don't love. And I just feel remarkably blessed because of it.
Yeah. You know how many people have to get up and go, I got to go to work. And we have to work. But I mean, that's hard to find in life, man.
Yeah.
Especially in America, everywhere, I guess. Okay. So that was a good answer. So what in life do you hate?
I have been progressively more and more disliking politics.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I have been progressively more, because I am a political science major. So there was a time where I loved talking policy. There was a time where I loved having good, like my best friend, who was best man at my wedding, we've been best friends since 8th grade. We have totally opposing political views. And we've always been we've had a couple arguments that got a little passionate, but we've always been able to have a good time talking because we respect each other and love each other and know the other person's values. And so we know what they think is important, and we just have a different idea of like what policy might bring that about. But I've been progressively seeing people just hating anyone who has a different political view than them.
Yeah, I think it's this culture now. It's either you believe what I believe or you're wrong. We should cancel you.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? If they don't believe what you believe, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Go that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So and Twitter's not a good spot for it. Twitter's
It's the worst.
Very like nasty about it.
It's better now that they don't censor everything. I believe.
Yeah. But watching politicians on both sides trying to pin people against each other and trying to like the others.
They do that on purpose.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it's to their advantage.
The best way to get someone out of public view or office is just to say he's racist. And that's it. Like if I'm having a discussion or argument with someone, they look at me and they go, "You're racist." And then you're like, no, that's because you don't have a valid argument, you know, and that's what you want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about politics. I try to stay away from it.
It's the dehumanizing of other people. Because if you dehumanize them, you don't have to give them any kind of courtesy. You don't have to give them any sympathy or empathy or anything. Dehumanize them and you're allowed to do whatever you want to them.
And that is terrible. Yeah, that's the worst terrifying thing. I always say I'm not on either side of politics. I agree with issues, not sides. Like, let's just say you're a Democrat. You can't agree with 100% of the things they do. You can't. It's not possible. I agree with this, but I don't agree with this. I agree more with this and not with this.
It is the curse of the partisan where you have to defend things you really don't believe.
Yeah, that's bullshit, dude. I mean, I'm not going to defend it if I don't believe it. Yeah, it's no. Okay, so what's your favorite saying? So like if I asked your wife, he's always saying this.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. What do I tell my daughter all the time? What do I? Oh my God, it's a good question. I don't think I have like kind of a philosophy.
What would your wife say?
Would have to ask her, but I'm sure it's something to do with just, staying on mission of some sort, and I'm a sober drunk. So I certainly,
what does that mean?
Well, I'm a big old alcoholic. I just haven't had a drink in 20 years.
Okay.
So, it probably, AA had such a influence on me that I probably have a lot of AA phrases that I say, and I just don't even realize I say them anymore. So it's probably something to, just of accepting, just accepting what you cannot change. So I'd probably go that direction.
I need that. I stress about things you can't change. It sucks.
Yeah.
And I know you're not supposed to.
Yeah. But how do you not?
Yeah, I know. And the older you get, it's like sometimes it gets worse. Stressing about shit that hasn't even happened yet. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. All right. You really didn't answer my question. I'm going to have to call.
I'd have to call
your wife.
Yeah, I might have to call her
This
myself.
guy always says something.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you didn't do what you did now, because you love what you do and you've been doing it a long time, but if you didn't do and you couldn't do what you did now, what would you do?
I would probably, I probably would have been in the military.
Yeah, you think so?
I probably would have flown jets.
What branch? Oh,
Marine Corps.
Marines?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I come from, my dad was a Marine, my brother's a Marine, my nephew's a Marine. And I was accepted to platoon leaders class flight school out of high school. So like I was geared.
So you were going to do it?
I was geared to fly jets. Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why it took me so long to figure out I needed glasses.
Oh yeah,
because I knew I had perfect vision because I was going to fly jets, and like and then like 15 years later, as if that's some short period of time, I was kept complaining to the projectionist at a movie theater about your movie's out of focus. Why is your movie out of focus?
Your eyes are out of focus.
Yeah,
Sir.
yeah. And so I'd been writing at that point for 15 years of just staring at that computer and screwing up my eyes. Yeah. So if I wasn't doing this, I would have gone to law school or flight school.
No, wait, that changed. You would have went to law school or been in the military.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, I probably would have went through because the military would have sent me to law school or flight training. And I chose flight training.
Yeah. That would have been, and especially when you're young, and you're like, yeah, I want to go be a fighter pilot. Let's go.
Yeah. I did not imagine me flying cargo jets. You know, like in my mind, I was flying an F-18.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, all right. So what profession would you never do?
What profession would I never do? Oh my God. I know a corporate 9-to-5 job.
Boom. Me too.
Scared the hell out of me.
Me too.
That was just something I knew I never wanted to do. And it's what my dad did, and he did well. But he didn't want to do it. He did it because he got married, and all of a sudden sons started popping out. And so he's like, I can't do these other things I wanted to do. So, but I think something about driving into the office, products I don't care about, selling something I don't care about, having to get good at something I didn't want to do scared me.
Yeah, me too. Going to work, go home, go to work. Remember I said that earlier? Going to work, going home, and just something that you hate, but I got to go to work because you have to make money to support yourself and your family, and that's what you have to do. Oh man. Yeah, I didn't like that either. So, so you work at the U of H and you love your job, which is fantastic. And do you teach like speaking classes with people? They take it and you show them how to tell better stories.
Yeah.
And or write better.
Both.
Okay.
Both. I mean, the focus isn't how to tell better stories, but it's there to help because we want them to write better stories. So
that's amazing. Have you ever had any student that went out and wrote like a huge blockbuster?
Not a huge blockbuster. I've got plenty of students who are on staff of TV shows and things like that.
They're on the staff of a TV show?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't watch TV, so I don't know.
Yeah. Mostly comedies.
Yeah.
Through the improv community. But again, these were really talented people.
Yeah.
Like they would have been doing that eventually. I just cut that path and
steered them into it. Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that were really fun things about teaching in LA is that there was just so much talent because everyone from around the country who thought they were good at and wanted to pursue it were all going there. And, you teach at U of H and people are feeling it out, so you've got some really talented people there, but a lot of people that are just kind of curious and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. And I've been really gratified of how many of my students have become attracted to screenwriting after taking classes with me.
Well, you interested me in less than an hour.
Oh,
I'm already like, wow,
I love it.
And like it all makes sense. The way that you explained it made sense, and it could help me in other ways too, in my business and in talking to people and something else.
Telling stories and evoking emotion is invaluable.
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed. The common theme is getting the emotion out of someone. Yeah, and that's what really sells it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, one more. It's a deep one, okay?
Okay.
So, at the end of your life, it's all over, it's all said and done. How would you like for people to remember you?
Honestly, I would probably, and just top of my head, I think what I would like to be remembered for is transformation.
Transforming what?
Myself.
Yourself?
Of just being an insecure drunk who was not always great to be around, self-centered, get me drunk enough, mean-spirited, and not always fun to be around, and becoming someone better over time. And I think it's because I wrote screenplays when I was a jerk, like that was a jerk. But I think I became but back then I was doing it to, be successful, to show off, make money. I felt like I couldn't be loved unless I made some money and was successful at it. Unconsciously, I didn't figure that out till later, that was a big part of it. But one of the things that has made me really fall in love with it, with a passion of not just like selling a script, but telling good stories and teaching good stories, was how much the idea that you can change became important to me. The idea that you can become a better person and that your life doesn't have to be what it is right now if you don't want it to be. That has become an important person, or an important part of my life, of just that we can change, we can affect our lives, we can feel the way, we don't have to feel the way we're feeling. That had become really important. So if anyone were to see me over time and look at my life, I think that would be something I would like to. I would be perfectly happy if that's what I was remembered as.
No, that's great. But I think that everyone, when they're younger, I mean, maybe not everyone, but most everyone, I was an asshole.
Oh, I mean, high school kids are terrible.
Oh my God. And I'm an asshole now, but to a certain degree, I know when I'm wrong being an asshole. But the other thing is you noticed that and you changed it. Some people never notice that they're like that and they just stay there.
Change.
But you can change.
Yeah. But I mean, this is one of the reasons why I like a story, like any story of character has to hit some kind of bottom.
Man, I was thinking the same thing when you were saying that. You were like, okay, I was like, that's the part of a story where there's a conflict or there's a bottom part and you change it.
Yeah.
And there's a resolution too.
Because people it's why rich men and beautiful women have a very hard time getting sober. Because a rich man has money. He can always buy more friends. He can always buy more people that aren't sick of them. Mm-hmm. And then beautiful women have the same thing. They can always find someone else, like all your other friends left, you can find somebody else.
Yeah.
And they have a much harder time hitting any kind of bottom. And so they have a hard time making that spiritual transformation.
Man, this has been enlightening. Okay, you have a website?
Yes, storyandplot.com.
Storyandplot.com.
All one word, storyandplot.com.
Okay, YouTube?
As Story and Plot.
Story and Plot, YouTube too. All right. Yeah. And then Instagram?
Story and Plot Classes.
Oh, Story and Plot Classes.
Yes. I used to have Story and Plot, but I can't get back into it. So now I have Story and Plot Classes.
Oh, you don't know the password?
I think I think the email I used to sign up for it is gone. So there's no way. There's no way to get it back.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's silly, but yeah.
So I appreciate you coming out.
I love it.
It was pretty enlightening, and I'm thinking about different things. Sorry, I spaced off. I'm thinking about the things that you said and how to put it in a story, and it's interesting.
I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Dude, that was good.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was really